have you heard the one about my three dads? So I had three dads, basically. My mother's father, who was my grandfather, Big Papa. Again, I was not as cool as all that. That was just a really cool name. And I had my biological father and my stepdad. So growing up, my mother and my biological father split pretty early on. I don't remember, I was a baby. And my grandfather and grandmother raised me until about age 8. Age 8, my stepfather and my mother kind of they got married. I wouldn't say that they got married for love. I think that their love was of a friendship that was so massive that could get misconstrued for romantic love. But they married at from age 8 until I was a teenager. But my stepfather was always in my life. And then I have my biological father, who I didn't really connect with until age 40. And I'd like to share of that story of how the biological grandfather on my father's side, how we got reconnected again. So my three dads, my grandfather was very stoic. He was my cheerleader. He was someone who was a protector. He took me to my gymnastics. He taught me about classical music and how to be strong and silent through the chaos. My stepdad, Al, was moody. So it got me to realize not to take things personal. He had a wide range of musical interests and creativity to where he was so intelligent. So he always had me thinking and being open to different ideas. And he taught me loyalty, loyalty to a fault almost. I think that's one of his genuine gifts, is that especially through all the things my mom went through and all the things that I've gone through and all the things that my grandmother put him through, he was there to pick up whatever pieces were left. And so that appreciation and that loyalty is there. And that's why talking about this is difficult, because I know both of my dads are watching probably. And it is a strange sensation to know that I have two different worlds. But my mother's father, my grandfather, Big Papa, Big Papa died when I was young. So that was a big break for me. But the story I do want to tell is the story of my biological grandfather on my father's side. So, living in Asbury Park. We were living in Asbury Park, New Jersey. I was married. I believe we were married or engaged, but either way, I was working at a dance studio. No kid, no baby yet. And I was working at this dance studio, and it so happened one of the other girls that worked at the dance studio, we were all friends. We were very close, like family. She was renting our condo in Asbury Park, and we had eventually moved on to a house. So I think it might have been, oh my goodness, if we lived in the house, then we did have the baby. Boy. So Max was there, but he was so little. I don't really recall. And so we were in the house, and Jessica was living in the condo. She would bring me my mail. So she'd bring me my mail, and that was fantastic. At the dance studio, I had, bills here, bills there, whatever. But she got one time a package. It was just a little box. And she's like, here's your mail. I'd look through it, and I was going into class. I was not thinking of anything of this mail until I look at this box, and on it had my last name, my maiden last name. And I knew that this was my grandfather because it had Gabriel in front. So I was like, oh, that's my biological grandfather. And everybody's like, stops what they're doing. And I'm like, I can't open this right now. I got to go teach class. I'm like, you guys can open it. So I left it with my dear friends that were working behind the desk at the dance studio. I said, you guys open this. I'm going to go teach class. I'll see you in a bit. I couldn't deal with it. So, of course, I'm teaching dance, I'm teaching ballet, and I am so distracted, and I cannot think of anything but what's in the box, what's in the box. So I go and I get a drink of water, and I pass by the desk, and the ladies, tears. They're just sobbing their eyes out. They've got the letter. They're like, you have to read this letter. You have to see what's, it's photos. It's all photos of you as like a child. And I said, oh my gosh. So I stopped class. I read the letter. Now I'm sobbing. The kids, the teenagers that I'm teaching are like, they don't want to do class. So they're like, let's talk about it. Let's read. And so I basically looked at everything and took it all in. And I was, I guess I was, late 30s. So this was the first time I had heard anything from my biological grandfather at all. And he left a number. So I decided to call. And the next week I called and we spoke on the phone, and he had, told me about like some health issues, and he had told me like he was living with my aunt, so Michael, my biological father's sister, and we just got to talking, and he was really adamant about bringing the family back to wholeness. So I spoke with him, I guess, a couple of times, and he actually lived near my in-laws. So I'm like, look, we're going to Florida. Why don't when I go to Florida, I will come and visit. So when I would talk to my aunt and get that organized. So I landed in Florida, going to see my in-laws. I give Nancy, my aunt's number. I give her a call, and I'm like, we're here, so I'm going to be seeing you next Wednesday. I'm going to be, meeting the family. And she said, I'm so sorry. He passed away. So it was a week. I missed him by a week. He passed away on a Wednesday, and I arrived, and I was going to see him that following Wednesday. But what he gave me was the door to open. So I did. I went to visit Nancy, and then we spoke, and I saw letters that my grandmother on my mother's side written about, how I was doing, and just correspondence, and all the photos that my grandfather kept, and all the notes and the printouts of who knows what, like any kind of memorabilia that they may have kept over the years. And I know it was important to him before he died to mend whatever he could, so then I could therefore move forward into forgiving my biological father, but also starting a new relationship with him. And that's the thing. I never felt as though I had unforgiveness in my heart. It was more of this untouchable, like I just didn't think about it. It wasn't really a part of my life, so I didn't put much effort into it or put much thought into it. So I think, some time went by, and Nancy's like, you got to call your dad. You got to call your biological father. And I always called him bio dad. And if you recall from my last video, there was a time where we met. I was 15. It was too much. I declined, and I said this was not for me. So now I'm like I say all the time, I was a grown-ass woman with a family of my own. And so I was like, really kind of, should I not? There was this moment of questioning. And also I wanted to make sure biologically, he probably, like my mom, she did make it known to me that Al or Michael could possibly be my biological fathers. And I know Michael and I look tons alike each other. We have so much in common. I know that now. But like Al's sisters, I look a lot like them. So I was like, okay, we're going to get a DNA test. So Al and I decided before I even really started to reach out to Michael to get a DNA test to confirm or deny. And it's like, as much as I didn't want to look at those results, because I liked living in the neutral or the, the fluid, it gave us concrete evidence that Al was not my father, my biological father. And that was hard because he had been there from the beginning. And it would have been like really kind of cool to share genes with him. I mean, he's nuts. And I tell him that all the time, so maybe it's a better thing. But so after realizing that Al was not my biological father, then I felt the courage to reach out to Michael and rebuild a relationship with him. And that's what we've been doing ever since. And how this three-father figure affected me in ways, my relationship with other men, acceptance of other men, and even our Father who art in heaven, that had ties. So one thing that was always a struggle for me, being between these worlds, is that I had all these men that loved me. I knew Michael loved me. I knew it. I knew Al loved me. I knew, my grandfather loved me. I knew all these people loved me, but I didn't quite fit in. So it's like, in Al's family, I was a stepchild, and I had red hair, so I was a redheaded stepkid. But like, I had Al, but like, I didn't have his mom. His mother wasn't my grandmother. His sisters weren't my aunts. They were his sisters. And then with my bio dad, I didn't know anybody. I didn't have that. So when that comes into my faith and then comes into my belief system, I really had to tangle and struggle and wrestle with that. The relationship with the family. So I had a great relationship with God, had a great relationship with my fathers and my grandfather. But how does that correlate to the other people around me? And that's what I'm working on now, really, is that, I can have my isolated relationship, but can I branch out? Can I connect with others? Can I connect with the families? And open my mind and open my heart to the family that I felt rejected by. And that's what I'm working on for myself. But the gratitude that I have for those male figures in my life, I don't know where I'd be without them, especially Al. My mom, relapsed a lot, and I'll get into those stories later. He stuck around. He stuck around. And so to appreciate that, I do feel that I found that in a man who was my husband. And through the hard times, through the good times, he stuck it out with me. And my picker of men did shift throughout the years, but the qualities that I found in the male figures in my life are now the qualities that I have found in a husband. And I appreciate that. So those are the stories of how I met the biological side of the family, but also the strong relationships, bonds, gifts that I got from my male figures growing up.